everything. We almost got snowed in.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I
Oh my
wish that was
gosh.
me though. Sorry. Okay.
Anyway, sorry, I swung that on you,
Okay.
but we're live now.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to the stream. This is part 3 of our Toaru Explained series, where I take to task explaining the entire chronology of the Toaru series to people who have never read or watched it before. Um, though CJ won't be joining us this time. This time we've got Lizzie Shinkiga and we've got Celeste Castell. So welcome,
Hi.
folks. I know Celeste Castell does have exposure to Toaru, so she's not technically a newcomer, but still, I thought I'd bring her
Hi.
on for flavor.
Oh my god.
And I'm still a complete newcomer. New. I'm a total newbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you just say something really quickly? I just want to double check your levels.
Oh. Wait, who?
You.
Me? Hi. I
Okay.
am Olivia or Celeste Castle.
Okay, there we go. I just
Okay.
put your volume at max.
Okay, sorry.
You're a quiet bean.
Oh, nice.
Whereas I'm
Okay.
probably extremely loud.
No.
You're a good volume.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I've got some.
Oh my god.
I've put a playlist of Toaru music on in the background, so I think we can get started.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to do before we started was bring up my document of notes. So let me just do that real quickly.
Mm.
I believe we were just up to the start of Index Season 2, and this point in the chronology gets pretty thick.
Mm.
Because this is where you've got, like, you got Index, you got Railgun, you've got Accelerator, and then you got a bunch of side stories and, like, Astro Buddy, all kind of happening around the same time period. So there's a lot to cover. So it's going to get pretty interesting. I'm going to see how I go. Now, do we need a recap? It's been like a couple of weeks since we last streamed.
The last big thing I remembered was the really cool. Let's see. I remember a whole bunch about that really cool fight with Accelerator in
Yeah,
him getting punched in the face.
I have to stress how fucking cool that is too, because that's like easily one of the best arcs of the early story.
I did watch that video you posted, and it
Oh,
was
cool.
pretty hype.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
So just kind of getting you caught up on like a visual idea of what the series looks like, and not just taking my word for it. All right. Okay, here we are. So Toma defeats Sherry Cromwell, the Anglican magician. Wait, why did my stream just end?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Oh,
Maybe it's
no.
because I sorry, my Discord stream I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I minimized the folder.
Sure.
There it goes. All right, we're back.
Okay.
Okay. So just before we continue, thank you if you decided to watch this instead of watching Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez playing Among Us, because that's apparently happening right now.
Wow. My god.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
wild. Anyway, continuing on. Just lost all my viewers saying that. Yeah, so Sherry Cromwell is defeated by Toma and the gang, and she goes back, and we have the whole thing with Kazakiri Hyoka, reaffirming her status as Index's friend after, trying to disappear, and Index is like, no, you're my friend, even if you're not human. And that's the end of Index Season 1. And then chronologically, we have a few things going on. We don't jump straight into Index Season 2 yet. The first thing we have is September 3rd, 3 to 5 is the Liberal Arts City arc of Railgun. Interestingly, this wasn't depicted in the Railgun anime or manga. It was actually a Railgun side story novel that was released alongside the Index Season 1 anime Blu-rays, if I remember correctly. So for a while, not many people had read this one. It was kind of like esoteric knowledge hidden in the archives. But basically, the story is about Misaka and her friends are invited to visit Liberal Arts City as part of an exchange program for their school. But during their stay, they uncover a conspiracy in which the city is secretly being used to research magic technology. basically they come into contact with technology from the Aztec Cabal, Order of Return of the Winged One, and they don't know what the fuck it is. They just think it's like strange UFOs and shit, and they're like, their first thought is that maybe it's related to Esper powers, because they don't really know what it is. Liberal Arts City is like, it's I believe a city off an artificial island off the coast of California, if I remember correctly. And the whole idea is it was basically like a Hollywood island where it's just like dedicated to filming action movies and special effects and stuff. But it turns out that's all kind of a cover, because when the UFOs start attacking, it's not some like theatrical thing, it's actually UFOs attacking. But like everyone's like, oh, this movie's so cool, they're like doing an action scene. It's like pretty fucked up. And yeah, so they're researching the Aztec magic, thinking it's an Esper thing. They don't really understand it, because I guess they're dumb Americans. Sorry.
No.
And basically what ends up happening is Saturn is with them, and she gets as is known of her character, she loves getting in nooks and crannies where she doesn't belong, and she ends up uncovering this whole conspiracy, and she ends up befriending one of the Aztec magicians, a girl named Xochitl. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And a bunch of stuff happens. There's this big climactic battle between the Aztec magicians and the Liberal Arts City, and Mikoto has to like stop them from killing everyone, basically. And there's this really cool scene where Mikoto is actually able to use her electro powers to grow wings by harnessing the conductivity of vapor in the ocean. It's like a special thing she could only do at that specific time, and it was a really cool moment, because fucking Mikoto with wings, it's like an awesome image. Anyway, it's a fun story, but the basic gist of it is the city is destroyed by the Aztec magicians, but Mikoto is able to keep it, like everyone, all the innocent bystanders, from dying. And then they go home. This arc is important because it introduces Saturn to Xochitl, so that will become relevant later. After that, chronologically, we had the Necromancer arc, which is the first arc of the Toaru Kagaku no Accelerator series, which is a series of manga and anime. In this, and it's also like the entire arc of the anime. Basically, this story is about Accelerator still recovering in hospital from his traumatic injury after Amayao shot him in the head. And in this story... Oh, hey! Pepe joined. Welcome, Pepe. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I meant to show characters. Xochitl, where is she? That's her there. So it should become more important later. There's a bunch of other characters, like one-time characters on Liberal Arts City, but they don't matter that much, so I'm not going to show them. Anyway, continuing with the Accelerator arc. Where was I? So basically the point of this is, this is all the story of Hishigata trying to create a level 6 with the help of his dead sister, now infused with the soul of an old demon, which is actually in secret the Rosenthal ancestor. I've talked a little bit about the backstory of this arc already, because basically what's happening is Hishigata seeks to obtain a body with the memories of 10,000 deaths in order to transform his undead sister into a level 6. However, only Essa, his former assistant, knows that Hirami is actually possessed by the artificial soul Toaru, and it's later revealed that that's the Rosenthal ancestor. And so Essa reaches out to Accelerator in hospital for no reason, really. It's kind of contrived. But she's just like, you gotta help me. And Accelerator does, because he's a nice guy, I guess. And he likes to pretend he's not, but he's a nice guy. and he helps her, and there's a bunch of stuff where we end up meeting these new group of characters called Scavenger. Let me see if I can bring them up. So their leader is called, well, she's kind of nameless. We just call her leader. She has the power of, I forget what it's called, but basically it summons a bunch of demonic looking eyes in the sky, and her thing is basically her power is surveillance. She can look over from a wide area and get a bird's eye view of any location within like a kilometer or so. It's pretty helpful. There's another character called Seike. Gender unconfirmed. I guess they're like a cross-dressing guy. Basically, his deal is that he has the power to control friction coefficients. So he can make a surface extra slippery or extra... what's the opposite of slippery? Lizzie, what's the opposite of slippery?
I don't know.
Probably. That's like a lot of friction, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean. She can control friction, and that has a lot of interesting uses in battle. There's also, God, I'm trying to remember the names of all these characters. Fujimaru, is that her name? No, not here. Damn it.
Non-slippery.
Non-slippery. Fuck it, I need to look up their names now because I don't remember. My knowledge is failing me. Wiki. What the hell? Oh, here we go. Here we go. So there's Naruha. That's it. Naruha is one of them. That's her. She has the unique ability of controlling paper, but the things she can do with it are kind of ridiculous. She can make paper extra strong like metal, and she can use it to create giant suits of armor in the shape of a teddy bear made out of paper. And she can even create like a complicated machinery out of paper. Like she can create drills. She can create... I think they fucking even made a car out of paper at one point. It's pretty fucking crazy. So yeah, that's kind of overpowered. And there's also Yakumaru. That was the other one. And her power is... Well, she doesn't have a power. She's level 0. But she's basically a chemicals and explosives expert. So combined, they form Scavenger, and they're basically like a dark side mercenary group of Academy City. One of the less prominent ones, though. Definitely not a big name in the city, but they're just trying to get by, trying to survive in the dark side of the city. And they end up encountering Accelerator, and Accelerator fucks them up. This is just the kind of thing with the Accelerator series, is he meets people and he fucks them up because he's the number one. And I guess I don't know if I explained that clearly, but even though he has suffered a brain trauma from the gunshot wound, he's still able to use the power of his vector transformation because he's borrowing the computing power of the Sisters network. So that's how that works. Just gonna check chat real quick. Okay. And yeah, so a bunch of stuff happens. Hishigata's plans are eventually foiled when the Toaru / Isaac Rosenthal ends up, taking the mask off, and when they're able to seize, they are able to seize one of the Misaka sisters for the 10,000 memories, and they download her memories because you can do that, I guess, and they implant them into Nathan / Hirumi's body. Let's show what she looks like again. Hirumi. They transplant the memories of 10,000 deaths into her body, and then because Kabbalah, I don't know too much about the stuff, but apparently, like, there's this thing in Kabbalah, if you have 10,000 deaths, then you can extend up the Sephiroth. And this kind of happens. She basically becomes a perfect golem, though the progress is gradual. She ends up developing this giant body, mass of flesh that towers up into the sky, and ends up actually forming the shape of a Kabbalah tree of life, which is interesting. And one really cool effect, actually. I don't know if I can grab a picture of it real quick, whatever. But basically, in the anime, they show how this Kabbalah golem is distorting the world around it by actually making the entire scene gray and white. Black and white. Like, it literally saps the color out of the world. It's like really cool. And so, yeah, there's this big battle where Accelerator and friends are trying to take down the giant golem. The golem keeps consuming like all of its subordinates for power, because apparently they still don't have enough deaths. And one interesting facet of this whole thing I notice is anti-skill, the police force are like trying to contain the situation, but they're told to stand down by their board chairman, at least himself. Which is just a little tidbit, which I thought was very interesting. It's like this giant golem is threatening to destroy the world and become God, and Elise is like, nah, don't worry about it. It's fine. I don't know if that's because, like, he wanted to capture the golem for himself, or if he, like, trusted Accelerator and friends to deal with it. Either way, that's basically what ends up happening. Accelerator himself doesn't have the power to destroy it, but Esther developed a special spell, as a Rosenthal herself, to sever the soul from the body. And she's able to use that on the golem, and Isaac's soul is purged, and they're able to save the day. And then Hirumi is left dead for good, like she originally was. Now, I have a question in chat. How does Accelerator link up to the Sisters Network? Basically, it's a device developed by Heaven Canceller, the frog-faced doctor. What happens is it's a choker he puts around his neck, which connects wirelessly to the Misaka network, and is able to, through some science, connect to his brain to the network, and able to offset the processing power, kind of like cloud computing, if you think of it that way. I hope that's a sufficient explanation. It's all very sci-fi. Any questions so far, audience?
I guess audience too.
What's that?
I'm just looking at the cloud computing. The cloud computing's kind of but I'm just looking at that what was her name? Himegami. There was someone there Himegami. That I thought I recognized her from Higurashi, but I feel like
she's basically out of Higurashi. Like, she comes from a village of like vampires and stuff. Like, she's basically out of Higurashi.
I see. No demons, just vampires this time.
See, remember, she was the one that has the power to destroy vampires. You may vaguely remember that from one of the earlier streams. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. So after that, we have Scavenger. Oh yeah, I already covered all that. Yep. Okay, so after that, or actually kind of around the same time, we also have the Dark Matter arc, which is an arc that takes place in a single volume of manga. It was a bit of a short manga. And this revolves around Kakine Tetaku. I don't know if we've talked about him that much yet. He is the number 2 Esper of Academy City, and his ability is called Dark Matter, which I feel like is improperly named. It should be called Exotic Matter, but anyway. His idea is basically he can summon forth exotic matter that doesn't exist in the universe. And that's pretty crazy. Like, even being able to summon matter at all is like usually considered a top tier power in most of these anime and stuff. But he summons exotic matter, and exotic matter doesn't follow the laws of our universe, so it can do fucking crazy shit. Just some examples of the applications of this are he can spawn wings of dark matter, which I'm just going to call it dark matter. He can spawn wings of dark matter, which light reflects through them and is amplified and becomes beams of deadly radiation. He has the ability to strike someone with a sword of dark matter and their body just turns into sand. Like, fucking weird shit happens when he uses his power.
Weird crap.
Yeah, it's really kind of terrifying.
That sounds like they're the most overpowered character so far.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, like that's lots of debate as to whether he or Accelerator is the most powerful, and like he has a lot of resentment for being the number 2. He wants to take down Accelerator and like claim his spot as the number 1. But at the moment, he hasn't been able to, because Accelerator can just reflect everything. But we'll get to that later. They do have a confrontation eventually. So Dark Matter has his own story arc going on here. I guess I should explain Kakine's thing. So he's a member of another Esper group called School. And this is comprised of... Where is she? I think I might have her under a different name, because her name was only revealed recently. Shoot. There she is. Measure Heart. Gokusai Kaibi. Her ability is called Measure Heart. And that's basically, she has the ability to manipulate the psychological distance between her and another person. So she can make
psychological distance?
Yeah, so literally like whether you perceive her as an enemy or a friend or a lover, she can control that.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, so like that makes her like the perfect Esper for like interrogation, because she can just be like, "You're my best friend, tell me what happened," and they will. And she can like stop people from trying to kill her or whatever. It's also like she can also use it as a bit of a radar, because she can kind of like detect animosity and that kind of thing. So it has a lot of interesting applications. And there's also a few other people, minor characters. What are their names? I'm falling short again. Let me look this up quickly. What is the name? Ah, yep. There's Yumi Arako. She doesn't have an ability herself. Her whole thing is she is an assassin. She's kind of a master assassin who's able to... I think she describes herself as a sniper, but she's able to snipe someone in the middle of a shopping mall in a busy crowd because she's able to hide her sniper rifle in her clothes. So it's pretty fucking crazy. She's very dangerous. And we also have Banka, that's his name, or Yobo. Wait, where is he? There he is. He has a simple psychokinetic power, but it's like, I think he's like a level 4 psychokinetic, so he can basically chop people in half with his mind. Okay, so what happens in the Dark Matter manga? So basically, Kakine encounters a girl called Yuzuri Haringo. Let me see if I can bring her up. A young girl who is a escapee of the Dark May Project, which was that project that took in a bunch of orphans and tried to inject them with Accelerator's personality and ideals to see if they could replicate Accelerator's power in these children. Yuzuriha is one of the few successes, quote unquote, of that project. The scientists were able to replicate a fair amount of Accelerator's vector transformation power, but only under extreme circumstances, and they kind of fucked with her a lot. It's kind of horrible. There was this girl in the project with her. What was her name? I thought I wrote it down. I didn't write it down. Anyway, there's this girl with her in the project, and she was like best friends with Yuzuriha. And the scientists realized that Yuzuriha's power only activated under psychological stress. So their idea to get her power to work was to just kill her best friend in front of her. Really cool.
Oh.
And
Jeez.
yeah, so this is like a really fucked up laboratory, and like everyone's miserable, and as a result, like the kids basically just flip out and they just like kill all the researchers and escape. So yeah, she is very traumatized. Yuzuriha, she kind of has like a bit of a split personality thing going on. And Dark Matter ends up finding her and taking her in. Originally, he wants to like try to get information on Accelerator's power through her. Like he wants to use her. But then like he actually ends up developing an affection for Yuzuriha and empathy for her situation. And what ends up happening is Yuzuriha gets kidnapped by Kihara Soji. I don't know if I have a picture of him in here. He's one of the newer characters. But yeah, he's another Kihara, one of the Kihara clan. And, you know, his whole idea is he wants to complete his research on Yuzuriha and make sure that she becomes the next Accelerator. And what did I write down here? Yeah, I think they like. I think he used hypnotic suggestion on her to like, you know, activate her power and make her go sicko mode, and it works. And Shiatsu ends up fighting Kakine / Dark Matter for a bit, and Kakine does this crazy shit where he uses his Dark Matter to manipulate the spectrum of light to basically put her out of her hypnosis and bring her back to life. It's like really anime. And then he kills Soji by turning him into sand. and Soji's just like, oh my god, what the fuck is your power? This is awesome. Just as he's like gripping his sand organs and dying. Fucking weird scientist, dude. And everything seems good. They've saved Yuzuriha. But then all of a sudden, Yuzuriha starts like coughing and dying, and they're just like, "What the fuck?" And they find out someone, it's implied to be someone high up on the board of directors, possibly Alastair himself, implanted a self-destruct code in Yuzuriha. So just in case like they fell out of her control, she would just die, and she does. And Kakine is pretty fucking upset and traumatized, and this kind of reaffirms his resolve to basically take down the city. He wants to take down Alastair, like the people who put this girl through so much trouble. And that's kind of where his story arc is at. He becomes a villain for the sake of vengeance. So that's Kakine. It's pretty fucking heavy. Moving forward, we have the Osola Aquinas arc, which is September 8 to 9. This is the first arc of Index Season 2. And basically what happens here is a Catholic nun named Osola Aquinas has found a way to decode Aleister Crowley's grimoire, the Book of the Law, which is the grimoire he wrote after making contact with the secret chief Iwas. This is like a really secret grimoire that nobody has ever been able to decode. They reckon that if someone decodes it, it'll basically bring the end of Christianity as a religion. And the Roman Catholic Church, they don't like that someone is able to decode it, no matter what their intentions are. Like Osola, she wants to decode it, but I think she wants to do it to like help the church, but the church like doesn't really care. And they kind of put a bounty on her head. And she escapes the Roman Catholic Church, but she ends up coming in contact with the Amakusa Church, which I mentioned before, the church that Kanzaki left behind. And their acting pope is a guy called Tatamiya. There's a bunch of people in this church, but they're mostly minor characters. the main ones you need to be aware of are Tatamiya, the acting Pope, and Itsuwa. Why Itsuwa? Because she's the cover girl of the group. And yeah, so Osola, I forgot to get a picture of her. Where is she? Is there anyone else I forgot to get a picture of? No, I think I'm good. So Osola there, that's her. And she is being hunted down by the Roman Catholics. She comes to Japan and meets the Amakusa. The Amakusa take her in for a while. And she actually ends up growing paranoid and suspicious of the Amakusa and like tries to run away. She thinks they're being too nice to her. And that's when she decides to flee to Academy City. And on her way, she runs into Toma, who has been contacted by Style and explained that basically they need his help to find a Solar Aquinas. And he just ends up finding her on the way. And when he meets her, she ends up joining him, and they go to meet Style together, and Style's like, oh, okay, you've done your job, hand over Osola. He's like, wait, what? That's the girl you're looking for? And then Osola like freaks out because she's about to be handed over to the Roman Catholics, the leader of which being a girl called Agnes here. She is the leader of this faction of nuns from the Roman Catholic Church that are trying to hunt down Solar Aquinas. She's also joined by a few other characters. There's Agatha here, there's Angeline here, and there's Lucia here. And there's a whole bunch of them, but they're the main ones. And just as she's about to be taken in by the Roman Catholics again, the Amakusa spring in and they abduct her again. And Toma doesn't really understand the full politics of the situation. He believes the Amakusa have kidnapped her. But what's actually happening in reality is the Amakusa are trying to save her from the Roman Catholics. And they have purely good intentions for once. Not for once, I just mean like for once in this story, like someone has good intentions. Their whole thing is that they are trying to follow in the footsteps of their leader, Kanzaki. But the but is basically that Osola doubted them because they were being too nice. But they like literally asked for nothing in return. They're just trying to do a good thing and save someone in need. So she was like suspicious of that by default, which kind of sucks. But yeah. So what ends up happening is Toma is manipulating to find the Amakusas, and there's this big battle that goes on between him together with Style versus Tatamiya. And it's a very good battle. It was a lot better in the novel than the anime, but it definitely shows like Toma's growth as a character as like trying to he's gathering battle experience for all of these battles, like, and he's really good at being able to see through a magician's mind games and like try to play his own mind games his own to get the upper hand. It's really hard to explain in a podcast, but Toma's methods of defeating all of these magicians are really fucking cool because he has no power himself except for his right hand, and like a good magician can easily be wary of that. So he has to think of really creative ways to defeat all of his opponents, and that's like a really compelling part of the story to me. Anyway, enough gushing. He defeats Tatamiya, and he's able to save, quote unquote, save Osola, but then like he realizes that Tatamiya is actually the victim here, and the Roman Catholic nuns show their true face and start attacking Toma and crew when they start suspecting something is up, and basically split the whole group up, and they take Solar Aquinas away to interrogate her and probably end up killing her. I think the idea was they had to take her back to Rome in order to, properly have her executed. Anyway, so Tatamiya and Toma and Style are thinking about busting in and saving her, but Style is like, we're Anglican. This is a Roman Catholic Church matter. We can't get involved in this. This is like too big. It could start a war between the Anglican and the Roman Catholic Church. And Tatamiya is like, well, we don't have any affiliation to either, so we're just going to save him anyway. And so Toma and Tatamiya go to save Osola on their own. But then what ends up happening is, I forgot to mention, let's see, the order of events. Lola Stewart, at the start of this arc, ends up giving a cross to Style, and she tells Style to give that cross to Toma, and then Toma, not knowing what to do with it, ends up giving that cross to Ursola when they meet. What this ends up having the interesting effect of doing is, by wearing that cross, they can make the argument that she has been accepted into the Anglican Church and is under their protection. So now that she's part of the Anglican Church, they have an impetus to act, because the Roman Catholic Church is about to kill a member of the Anglican Church. So that gives Style and Index motivation to join the fight. And this big battle happens between Style and Toma and Tatamir and the Amakusa Church versus all of the nuns, and it's very big and dramatic. And one of the interesting things that happens in it is Index has a spell called Sheol Fear, which is basically a magical song which highlights all of the contradictions in Christian dogma to basically make them question their faith, and it's basically a psychological attack. It's kind of crazy. And the fucked up thing is, their only way of countering that spell is to basically make themselves deaf, and they just kind of stab their ears out. It's like really fucked up. It's like one of the darkest scenes in the fucking show. And so that happens, and eventually the tide turns, and they are able to push back and defeat the Roman Catholic Church nuns there. And it's what ends up happening is the Roman Catholic Church, they don't want anything to do with this because it's a failure of a black op. And so they basically cast the nuns as the villains, like extremists, and have them imprisoned. Meanwhile, Ursola is taken into the Anglican Church, and also the Amakusas are taken into the Anglican Church as well. So that leads to a bunch of different things happening, but it's kind of a bit of a pivotal point in the story. Okay. Any questions? Lizzie, you still with us?
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay. All right. In the next point in the story, we have the Toaru Majutsu Tokagaku no Ensemble, Road to Endymion. And I can't talk about this one because I haven't read it yet. I didn't get around to reading it before doing this stream, unfortunately. But basically, my understanding is it's a prequel to the Road to Endymion movie, which I'm also not going to be able to talk about that much. Sorry about that. Next in the timeline, on September 11, we have The Necessary Special Entrance Exam, which is another one of those short stories that was released for Blu-ray. I think this was released with the Railgun anime. One of them. Maybe season 2? Railgun season 2, I want to say. And this is basically the Amakusa have, as I said, they were invited to join the Anglican Church. And the Anglican Church want to test them to make sure that they are fit to join Necessarius. And so they undergo a special exam in London to prove their capabilities as magicians. And a lot of shit happens in this arc. It's kind of a clusterfuck. There's like 7 different factions all kind of doing their own thing. And it's kind of a thing where each chapter it's like, oh, we defeated the big bad, but they were actually being manipulated by someone else. But those people being manipulated by someone else. It just keeps going in like a chain like that. There's fucking like Cthulhu magicians in there somewhere, like trying to summon Cthulhu in the real world, which is kind of crazy because
that sounds bad.
Yeah. It was pretty bad, but they stopped it. It wasn't Cthulhu. It was another Lovecraftian monster. It wasn't Cthulhu. I can't remember which one. Anyway, and there was a bunch of stuff at Stonehenge and blah, blah. I can't remember the full details, but basically the Amakusa managed to defeat every one of them and clear their names of suspicion. It's a pretty good book, though. I would recommend reading it if you have the time. After that, we have the continuation of Accelerated Story arc with the Nectar arc. This is the worst arc in all of Toaru. I'm just going to say that straight up. It's fucking terrible. Fucking garbage.
Jeez.
The basic plot is, there's a bunch of elites in Academy City who I don't know, they derive pleasure from eating food that has been spiced up with the brain juices of espers. And there's this whole like esper juice farming factory that they use to make this food. And Accelerator's like, that's fucked up. I'm going to tear it down. And he tears it down. And that's the story.
Ew.
It's really bad.
God.
Yeah, that's terrible. And I'm glad that manga is over forever.
Sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was absolutely horrible. Like, you know, it's this
Weird.
big climactic battle where, like, the really strong espers come out and they're like, we're going to take you down, Accelerator. And Accelerator just beats them instantly. It's like, what is this story? Okay, don't read the Nectar arc, I'm telling you. Though there was a good part at the end, though, because, like, they had to, like, save all the kids that had been, like, subject to this. And there's this really cool scene where Accelerator works together with Heaven Counselor to, like, use his power to save all the kids in the hospital. And that's really cool. I like that. It ended on a good note. But that arc is fucking terrible. And then, yeah, so we also have on September 14, going back to Index, we have the Tree Diagram Remnant arc. And this arc actually follows Kuroko, Mikoto's friend, as the protagonist. This is kind of a continuation of the sisters' story. Basically what happens here is a small remnant of Tree Diagram that supercomputer satellite in space that was destroyed by Index. A small remnant of it is retrieved in space and recovered by Academy City, who want to use it to reconstruct Tree Diagram in the hopes of restarting the sisters experiment. Level 6 shift, and Mikoto becomes aware of this and realizes that's no good, and she seeks to destroy it, but she's continually thwarted by the efforts of a level 4 teleporter named Musajime Awaki. I might have mentioned her briefly. Where is she? Musajime, there she is. She's a level 4 teleporter with the ability called Move Point, and basically what that means is she can teleport things, but not only by touching them, she can teleport things that she isn't touching, which makes her pretty overpowered. But she has a trauma from her youth where she accidentally teleported herself into a wall, so she doesn't like teleporting herself. When she does, she like basically throws up immediately. So that's like a weakness of hers. And she's able to evade capture from Mikoto, but then Kuroko ends up investigating and finding out what Mikoto is doing. And Mikoto kind of has this personality trait where she's always wanting to do everything on her own. She doesn't like asking for help. So she doesn't turn to Kuroko, and Kuroko gets really upset because she's like, why do you rely on me, One-sama? And then she basically just ends up butting in and involving herself anyway. And Kuroko confronts Musajime, and they have a big teleporter battle. It's very exciting. And eventually, like, Kuroko points out the flaws in Musajime's logic. I think Musajime's whole point was like, what was it? She was like, she wanted to, I think she wanted to get rid of her power. Something like that. Like, she wanted to use Tree Diagram to get rid of her power because she thought her power was like an aberration. She felt like she was a monster, and she wanted to get rid of people's Esper powers. And then, like, Kuroko's like, that's dumb. And then basically beats her up. And Owaki, Musajime, she ends up winning the battle and almost killing Kuroko by basically teleporting the supports for building out and making the whole building crumble down. And just in the nick of time, one of the sisters notices what's going on and contacts Toma to help. And Toma runs into Mikoto, and they both kind of work together to save Kuroko's life. So Musajime has got away. She's still got the remnant. Everything's not looking too great. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Accelerator pops up. And it turns out he was notified by Last Order that this shit is going on and they're about to restart the experiments. And Accelerator just like pops up out of nowhere. He spawns these black wings behind him using his new powers, I guess. and then just flies into the sky and gives the most brutal punch of a lifetime to Misajime and completely destroys the tree diagram remnant. It's a very very fun scene, well worth watching. And then Exodia goes home. So he had nothing to do with his arc, but he just comes in at the last second and saves the day. It's pretty funny. Okay, and after that, on September 15, we have The Miracle of Endymion, which is the movie of Index. And again, unfortunately, my memory of this is really bad because it's been literal years since I last watched that arc. So I don't remember much about it. I just remember there was like a space elevator, and like there was Lady Lee Road who was like trying to get herself killed through a big conspiracy. And there's this idol girl, and there's like they have like an idol concert at the top of the elevator in space, and there's lots of like bombastic set pieces, and it's very much like a movie. But I don't remember anything of it. It's not very memorable. It was a fun movie, but I don't remember much about it, so that's all I'm going to say about it. Moving on, Kanzaki SS. This is another one of those esoteric side stories that was included in a Blu-ray. This is basically following a series of adventures of Kanzaki working for the Anglican Church, trying to do a bunch of odd jobs around the world for the Anglican Church. And I like this book a lot because if you dig the magic side of Toaru, this goes so heavy on the magic side. Like, basically, you have all sorts of different stories from stuff like, there's this like elf, the story about an elf that like shouldn't exist in the world, and their existence in the world ends up causing fucked up, like, it basically fucks up the ecology of the local flora and fauna. There's like stories about it's like a Norse ship. God, it's hard to like recall all the little side stories because there's a lot that happens. But the main thing that happens at the very end is there's a reveal of Brunhild Actabel. Brunhild is a character who is she's a saint. So like Kanzaki, she was born with a little bit of the power of God. But she's also a Valkyrie due to her birth. And basically, because she's both a saint and a Valkyrie, she's kind of like ostracized by her fellow like Norse believers because it's kind of a mix of faiths, and a lot of fucked up shit happens. Like, you know, they think of her as like a blight on their society, and they keep her locked up and they keep fucking with her. And she ends up developing a deep resentment towards these Norse cabals. At some point, they end up like using a child to like fuck with her, and they end up killing the child. And she just like loses all sense of sanity and just devotes herself to vengeance and goes on a very violent crusade, killing all of these Norse cabals and basically massacring them. And Kanzaki comes in to stop her. Eventually, what ends up happening is she, Brunhild Actabel, she wants to recreate Gungnir, the legendary spear that Odin uses, and she hopes that she can use that to resurrect her her dead friend. And Kanzaki has to come in and stop her. And Kanzaki has this big speech to Brunhild about how like no one can be brought back to life. I remember reading this with Sel, and Sel was like really angry at this because she's like, no, you can bring people back to life in Norse. You want to say anything about that?
I don't know, like, I'm a Brynhild stan, so
Brunhild's great.
I just feel so bad for her.
Yeah,
Also,
seriously.
I got kind of like salty because like there was a period in time where like Norse like religion and Christianity like mixed. So
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
why is she treated bad? But then I'm like, Well, I guess if it's like an alternate universe,
Yeah,
I'll accept it.
yeah. This
So
is
yeah.
if you're well versed in Norse, Arc definitely has problems. But still,
Problematic. No.
Brunhild's really
Yeah.
she's like problematic. She's definitely not a morally virtuous character, but I like her a lot. Like
No, I love her.
she's been through so much.
I know.
Poor girl.
She
Yeah.
has like lots of problems, but I stand.
Yeah, we can't help but stare. Oh my gosh.
I miss her every
Yeah.
day.
Damn it, why were you in a
Um,
side story that no one read?
I know.
Okay,
Uh,
alright, so we're at an interesting point in the story now because September 19 is the Daihaseisai. And why is that important? So, I'm just gonna quickly check that Lizzie's still with us. She's been quiet.
I'm still here. I'm just making food in the background.
Okay, no problem. So Daihaseisai is really interesting. It's a sports festival in Academy City that happens once a year. Um, why it's interesting is because we actually have two story arcs taking place during this festival. One happens in Index and one happens in Railgun, and they both kind of intersect, but they're both completely independent stories. So I guess first, and a lot happens in this, so it's gonna take a while, but I'll do my best. So the first thing that happens in Daiseisai, we'll go with the Index story. What happens is a magician from the Roman Catholic Church, Oriana Thompson, shows up. She's basically bimbo central, but like, I say that, but like, you know, she's portrayed as a bimbo, but she's actually like one of the smartest characters on the show, and I fucking love that. We can't help but stan Oriana. She's
yeah.
like a fucking math genius, but she's just like the sexy Onesan that's like just trying to be like a he's kind of a pervert, I guess. Just trying to like seduce everyone. But her whole thing is she is basically tasked with transporting this magic artifact, and her whole thing, um, the whole thing with her magic is she's really good at manipulating people and escaping people. Her whole thing is she's basically like good at diverting attention away, or towards her, or using herself as a decoy, which ends up being the case. The magical artifact she's transporting is a decoy, and she is just completely a diversion, but they don't know that, and basically Tsuchimikado enlists the help of Style and Toma, and they're like, we gotta stop this girl because she's posing a threat to Academy City. The whole idea is the artifact she's meant to be transporting is the Croce di Pietro, which is a artifact which has the power to basically, I can't remember the full lore behind it. This is where it would have been good to have CJ on board. But basically the idea is that in Index, this is a magical artifact which is able to designate a location as the center of Christianity. It basically turns a place into Vatican City. So if they were to use it on Academy City's soil, it would completely rewrite history and erase Academy City as the center of science and turn it into a hub of magic. You know, basically KO the science side. So it's kind of a magical nuke, but it's like a more of a cultural nuke. It's magic is weird. So they're trying to stop her from doing that. And basically, it's a big dramatic chase around Academy City where they're trying to catch Oriana. This arc goes over 2 books. It's actually the first arc in the Index which has 2 books to it. And this goes on for a long time. Oriana ends up accidentally involving some innocent people in her escapes, and that kind of gives Toma his real reason to get involved, because like one of his friends ends up getting hurt. Actually, a couple of them do. Himagami was one of them, and another one of them was one of his classmates. Whatever the friggin' name is. There's too many characters in Toaru. But yeah, so Just checking chat. They chase Oriana around the city. There's a bunch of stuff that happens. One of my favorite parts is she's like trying to escape on a bus, and so what Style does is he just like puts one of his rude cards on every bus in a bus shelter, and so that like Tsuchimika was able to call up Style and be like, okay, she's on bus 45, and then he just sets off an explosive and blows up the bus. Thankfully, there was nobody else on it. It's an unmanned bus, so they made sure of that. But yeah, it's just lots of interesting strategy going on. Oriana's magic is very special. She uses a special grimoire called Shorthand, which is basically a necklace of what do you call them? Flashcards, and each card has a different spell on it. And it's all random. She basically just like rips one off, and she doesn't know what she's gonna get. But she has a whole bunch of different random spells that just kind of throw people off, because usually magicians only have like one focus as their magic, but she's just like chaos basically. And so her whole thing is that she's really good at reading people and predicting people. So the way Style and Toma are able to eventually defeat Oriana is they are able to defeat her by being chaotic and unpredictable. And they basically just like, they keep getting in each other's way and pushing each other over and like just fighting like children. And like, she just like can't predict their movements, and she ends up failing to their attacks that way. It's pretty funny. But then they find out that she was actually a decoy all along, and the real Coach de Pietro is being held by another person, Livia Lorenzetti, who is in a remote location just outside the outskirts of Academy City, and her spell is about to activate because it's almost the right time where the stars in the sky are aligned that the spell can activate. And they're about to give up, but just then, all of a sudden, the sky fills with fireworks, because don't forget, this is Dai Heisei. It's a festival. There's a fireworks show scheduled to happen. This fireworks show just so happens to block out the night sky and make it impossible for them to cast a spell. So it's a complete coincidence that the plan ends up completely failing, because I kind of think of it as very symbolic, because how, like, you know, everyone in the city is just trying to have fun, and the Roman Catholics didn't pay enough attention to what was going on in the city to realize that their plan would fail from the beginning. I think that's kind of poetic. And then in a scene at the end, Lidvia is trying to escape on her jet plane, and then the plane fucking blows up, and she is attacked by Lola Stewart and ends up being incarcerated by the Anglican Church. And this kind of just shows how scary Lola is, really, just being able to like attack a plane remotely, like she predicted everything. And yeah, so Oriana and Lidvia are both captured. I think Oriana ends up defecting to the Anglican Church because she doesn't have that much loyalty, but Lidvia ends up being incarcerated at the Tower of London. So yeah, kind of, as you can kind of see at this point, tensions between the Roman Catholic Church and both the Anglican Church and Academy City are mounting and rising. This kind of like really started reaching ahead when, you know, Toma and crew ended up defeating the Roman Catholic nuns, but now they're like, you know, really trying to go to war for Academy City, you know, try and take it over. So yeah, tensions are mounting in the world. But there's also the railgun arc that happens in Dai Heisei, which is this whole other thing. And a lot happens in this arc, so it's going to be hard to make sure I get it all, but I'm going to try my best. First of all right, just to make sure, is everyone present?
Still here.
Need to keep checking in. How are you feeling, Lizzie?
Doing good.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear about this certain scientific railgun.
Yeah, this is probably the best arc in Railgun. A lot fucking happens. So let's go. There's this dude called Kihara Gensei. I think we mentioned him earlier before. He is the man who developed Body Crystal, that thing that makes Esper powers go out of control. His whole deal is that he is looking to cause another level 6 shift after the fail of Accelerator's level 6 shift project. And he enlists the help of Kozaku Mitori, who... Kozaku... Wait, where is she? Where is she? There she is. I think I mentioned her before. She was a former friend in the Dolly Workshop project. I'm a friend of Dolly. And after realizing what the city was doing to Dolly, she ended up developing a grudge on Academy City, and the board chairman specifically. And so, taking advantage of this, Gensei basically breaks her out of jail, or like bails her out of jail, and is like, come work for me in my secret project, and we can get revenge on the board chairman. And so she happily joins, and what the plan is they want to cause level 6 shift by using Mikoto instead of Accelerator. So that's interesting. The way they need to do this is they need a few things in place first. They need control of exterior, which is, I don't have a picture of it, but it's basically the giant brain that was cultivated from Shokuho Misaki's frontal lobe that can basically replicate her powers on a grand scale. So he needs control of that to be able to control people. He needs one of the Misaka sisters, so he has access to the Misaka network. And he needs Misaka herself. And a bunch of other things are going on at the same time. Mitori, she ends up infiltrating the Esper Darkside organization Member. Member is another organization I haven't talked about yet. They are led by this guy called the Professor. He doesn't have a name, but he's just a very Einstein-looking dude. He doesn't have any powers, obviously. He's just like a master of like robotics. Robotics is, I guess, his main field. He also controls like nanomachines and stuff. There's also this guy called Baba. He's a fucking shithead. He's a really slimy dude.
He looked pretty slimy.
And there was also there's Sadaku, but he doesn't play this. The only one that's really relevant is Zotatul, which you may remember, who is an Aztec magician. She is infiltrated Academy City, and she's working for Member under the supervision of the Professor. But yeah, so Mitori has invaded this group, and she's kind of like subtly taking control. She's acting as a go-between from them, like as a liaison between them and the board chairman. But she's actually working for Kihara Gensei, and they don't realize they're being manipulated yet. I forgot to mention, but Mitori's power, she has the power to control liquid metal, and she can reshape liquid metal into a bunch of different shapes. She can basically use it to create liquid metal doppelgangers of herself. So yeah, that's interesting. What else is going on at this time? So Mikoto becomes aware that something fishy is going on in the city when Member tries to abduct her sister, one of the clothes, and she eventually confronts Shokuho Misaki about it. Excuse me. And Shokuho admits that she actually captured her Misaka sister to protect her from Gensei. So like Gensei tried to Gensei. Oh my god. So let's see. Baba, under the influence of Mitori, under the influence of Gensei, was attempting to capture the Misaka sister, but failed. And so Shokuho captures the sister instead to protect her from Gensei. It's like lots of layers of conspiracy going on. Mikoto doesn't realize this at first. She suspects that Shokuho is a villain, but turns out she's not. And then when she realizes what's going on, she joins forces with Shokuho. Just to remind you once more, Shokuho is the number 4 level 5. Wait, number 5 level 5. And her power is mental out. She can like control people's minds. And they join forces to take down Gensei, but it turns out Gensei is playing 5D chess with them. There's also a bunch of stuff where Baba, like, tries to kidnap one of the sisters, but is attacked by all of Mikoto's classmates. So Mikoto's classmates get involved and get hurt, but they end up taking down Baba, and that kind of steals Mikoto's resolve to get involved in the first place. Okay, so then what happens is they try to take down Gensei, but they arrive at Gensei's lab and they find a man has been brainwashed to believe he is Gensei, and everyone else believes he's Gensei. And so they found they've completely fallen into his plans when I kind of love this. Shokuho reads this guy's mind that thinks he's Gensei, and in his memories, he finds a message from Gensei, where like Gensei's just talking to this guy. It's like, hey, Shokuho, I guess you're reading his memories right now. Just so you know, I'm already at your base and stealing your stealing your thing. I just think that's like the most 5D chess move to do. And like, and they rush back to Shokuho's base to find exterior, and Gensei is already in the process of capturing it. But then no, he doesn't capture exterior. He manages to capture the Misaka sister. And then with Misaka's sister, he's eventually able to access exterior as well. And then he has all the pieces for his plan in one place. And what it does is some shit involving the synesthesia experiments from the first Railgun arc. I can't remember the full specifics or the full science behind it, but basically, combining all these things together, he is able to give Misaka a massive power-up and advance her to level 6, which sounds like it would be bad for him, but it turns out level 6 is like really chaotic and unpredictable. And if I can get a picture or something, I should try and get a picture. 1 second. I'm seeing a lot of fan art, not so much real art. I don't know if I want to show fan art on the stream. Whatever, I will anyway.
In trouble.
I'll just show it in voice text. People can Google it if they want. Google level 6 Misaka. There we go. So she basically takes on the visage of a god. And she ends up losing control of herself. Her power goes berserk, causing like a massive thunderstorm. And she kind of stops responding to everybody as she's just like powering up and reaching level 6. It's a gradual process again. Also, I'm just checking chat real quick. Hey, Lobakendo, welcome. Why are so many people obsessed with getting a level 6? Who decides on these levels anyway? Good question. Firstly, the level system is kind of arbitrary, but level 6 is kind of a special state wherein an Esper is theoretically able to... they describe it as acquiring a body that's able to process the calculations of God. But in essence, they basically become a god through science. And, Kihara Gensei describes this experiment as very likely destroying the universe, but he does it anyway because he's a mad scientist. And so it's a gradual process of gradually becoming level 6. They're just kind of obsessed with it because it's in their character. Alesta has his own motives for reaching level 6, but I think the Kiharas just have intellectual curiosity. And so this is all going on. Eventually, Toma ends up coming on the scene. He ends up realizing what's going on with Mikoto and wants to get involved. And another character ends up coming along as well, which you may remember from the first stream. Where is he? Sugita Gunha, the number 7 level 5. As I explained, his power is basically tokusatsu shonen ridiculousness. And it's kind of wonderful. And basically, Gunha and Kamijo end up teaming up to take down Mikoto. Or rather, basically return her to her senses. And this big climactic battle happens where they're working together to try and deflect crazy bolts of lightning and giant masses of magnetism and stone and concrete. And they're kind of ineffectual. Toma manages to use his hand to touch Mikoto, but she immediately regenerates anyway, so it doesn't really do anything. So they realize they need to cut off the source of her power. Meanwhile, while this is happening, we have a few more sub-battles going on. Kuroko, who at this point has had her memories erased because she got too close to the truth of Shoko's experiments and ended up forgetting who Misaka was, ends up investigating this on her own through judgment and figures out what's going on through her own deduction. And she ends up confronting Kozaku Mitori in a big battle. It's probably one of the best animated battles in the series, actually. And while all that is happening, Shokuho is facing off against Gensei because Shokuho wants to take off the limiters of exterior so he can use his full power and, you know, really get Misaka reaching level 6, because she's not quite there yet. She's like level 5.1 or something. And Shokuho has to like try and outsmart Gensei, but Gensei is playing 5-dimensional chess and he's like impossible to outsmart. So the only way she's able to outsmart him is by fucking with her own memories and making her believe that the code for exterior is actually... Well, she basically swaps the codes around in her head. So she swaps the limiter release code with the self-destruct code. And so Gensei is able to hack into her memories to get that information, but with exterior. But then it backfires because it's actually a self-destruct code and ends up destroying exterior. So pretty bold move. I'm just checking chat here. Yeah, Shoko beats him is even greater 5D chess. Because he'd have no scale for reaching a thing, so he has got to reach it. Yeah. Anyway, so that all happens, and that basically puts a hold on Mikoto's development, but she's still on her way to reaching level 6 slowly. So Toma and Gunha continue fighting Mikoto. It's a very, very awesome scene. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's probably one of the best animated parts of Toaru. And what ends up happening is Toma ends up losing his arm in one of the attacks of Mikoto. And do you remember what happens when Toma loses his arm, Lizzie?
Dragons, right?
Dragons come out, and 7 dragons explode out of his arm, and
all of them have depression.
And all of them have depression. And the dragons burst out of his arm, and they start basically eating Mikoto's power, and they basically eat the power and return her to normal. And like 5 seconds later, like Mikoto's like, "Oh my god, you just lost your arm. What just happened?" And then Toma's like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And his arm is just back there again. This is what the fuck. So apparently his arm can just like automatically regenerate in a matter of seconds, which is kind of new information at this point, if you're following the chronological order. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy. That's basically where the Daiheisei arc ends. It's really a really cool arc, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you ever check out the anime. So that's where we're at with that. Where are we? We're an hour and 20 minutes in. Shall we continue, Lizzie?
Yeah, I think we're doing good on time.
Okay. All right. So,
where are we in the big chronology of absolutely everything?
Well, like I said, this is like really in the thick of it, where a lot of stuff is happening at once. If we want to use the index novels as a reference, though, because they cover everything in the timeline, we are halfway through season 2, which is like, I think we're at book 10 out of like 50. So there's still a lot to go. But like I said, this part of the timeline is really dense. So we are making progress, even if it doesn't look like it. So after that, we also have like the whole stuff with Dolly. Shokuho believing Dolly to be dead, or Mitoru believing Dolly to be dead, is like falls into despair after being defeated here. She couldn't get her revenge on Alesta. She tried to get the level 6 Mikoto to attack Alesta's building, and it didn't do anything because that building is fucking indestructible. So she's in despair and like thinking of like taking her life. But then Shokuho comes along and she's like, "So I erased the memories from Kuriko of you, so she doesn't remember arresting you. And I'm gonna take you to see someone." And Shokuho actually shows her. She takes her to Dolly, and like she thought Dolly was dead, and Shokuho explains that, you know, the Dolly we knew was killed, but her memories were transferred to this Dolly, so it's effectively the same person. And you know, they take this Dolly out of her her stasis, and there's this really dramatic reunion where they reunite with their old friend.
Did we figure out if that was related to the sheep Dolly that was cloned?
Yes, that is correct. Dolly is named after the sheep Dolly.
Ah, so.
We're 25% done almost, Lobo says. I don't know. I think we might be 30% done. It depends on how we go. I don't know. We'll see. It's really hard to get a sense of how far we are along.
And of course, we spent a lot of time on the Cromwell backstory.
Crowley backstory, yeah.
Curly.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff there. Alright, so continuing on. So we have Railgun SS3, which is another side story novel. This is really interesting, and not a lot of people read it. Basically, once you tap Kuriko with a violin recital against Sakibasu Yuri of Shokuho's clique, where's Sakibasu? There she is. Kuriko's friends help her use technology to defeat Sakibasu's Stradivarius, which she believes is like the best violin in the world and can't be beaten, and she's a master violinist. And so they basically use a bunch of acoustic technology to win the recital. It's really interesting. And, you know, Sakibasu is really annoyed by this. Because like, oh, it's my heirloom. This is given to me by my mother, and it's the best violin, and now it's not the best, and she's really sad. And then Kuriko and Ko kind of take her in as friends and like, hey, just because you lose, like, it doesn't mean your violin isn't great. And it's all kind of heartwarming, and that's all. It's very light and fluffy arc. And then some assassins try and kill them, and just like, what the fuck?
Oh no!
It's like, what? I wasn't expecting this at all. And then it turns out, basically by winning this violin recital, they've angered a I don't want to call them a cabal because they're not magic, but like a secret organization of elites that basically use this violin and other similar items of valuable worth as keys to show their involvement in secret society. It's like the secret underground rich people world where if you show them a really expensive watch or a really expensive violin, it proves you're a member of their secret society and you get to participate in their dealings. And so the Stradivarius was one of these items, and because its reputation was tarnished and it's no longer the best violin in the world, they want to hide that secret, and they try and kill the group that like made that violin lose. So they end up like really getting involved in this crazy conspiracy from rich people trying to kill them. And they hire like Esper mercenaries to try and take him out. And eventually, you know, the girls all join forces with Shokuho and Hokaze Junko, and they basically, they try to uncover this conspiracy and take it all down. Eventually, they get to the bottom of it, and they realize the person who's at the center of this organization called Blue Blood, she is actually Sakibasu's mother. And Sakibasu's like really angered and confused because you're not this kind of person. And it's revealed that Sakibasu has a Stradivarius of her own, except the twist is that Stradivarius is possessed by a demon called Tamlim, and
Oh my god!
and that demon is kind of like influencing her mother. And because this is a railgun side story, none of the girls know what magic is, so they're like really confused. And there's basically this arc gets resolved because the only way to fight the demon violin is with another violin, and what ends up happening is Sakibasu,
Sure.
her violin is called the Stradivarius Einzel, and it has the fairy Einzel in it, which is like the good violin versus the evil violin. She plays a violin, and like for some reason, I don't know how this works, but she basically ends up using magic through the violin, and she grows wings from her back, and the power of the magical violin ends up defeating the demon, and it's really cheesy. And all the girls watching this are like so confused what the fuck is going on. And I'm confused too, because espers aren't meant to be able to use magic, and Sakibasu is an esper. Her ability is carbon search. She can hold an item and she can get an exact idea of the carbon isotopes in it, so she can use it to appraise items. It's a very specific power, but she does have a power, so she shouldn't be able to use magic. But she does, and I don't know why. So if anyone has any theories on how that's possible, I'm all ears. But yeah, she defeats her mother with the good violin, and her mother returns to normal, and then the blue blood stop hunting them down, and everything is good. So that's a very interesting arc. Now, just 1 second. I just want to check that I haven't missed anything important. Okay, we're not up to that yet. All good. Alright, continuing on. We have the La Regina del Mar Adriatico arc, which is me and Sal hate it. I think everyone hates this arc. Basically, it's not terrible. It's not as bad as the Nectar arc of Accelerator, but it's just not great watching or reading. Basically, in this arc, it's important enough, so I will bring it up. Toma receives he wins a competition and wins a trip to Venice. Yay. And I really feel like this is rigged from the beginning to send him to Venice because it's awfully convenient. And so at Venice, they end up running into Ursula Aquinas, who is just basically in the process of moving all their stuff out and taking it to London. But while they're meeting with Ursula, they end up encountering Roman Catholic assassins that try to kill them with magic. And Index is able to foil them, but then the assassins escape by summoning a giant ship of ice in the middle of a canal. It basically breaks the canal apart. And they go and sail off into the sunset, and Toma ends up hitching a ride on the ice boat. And then it turns out there's a whole fleet of ice boats out in the ocean, and Toma finds out they're actually prison ships which are holding all of the Roman Catholic nuns who were imprisoned after the events of the previous arc. And they end up basically working together with the nuns to seize control of the fleet, because the fleet is trying to use an artifact to destroy Academy City again, as has been the way lately. The nemesis in this case is a priest called... lost it. Biagio. There he is. And his power is magic that controls crosses. It's very, very dopey. And he just like makes really big crosses and throws them at Toma. And...
I hate it. No.
And yeah, it's kind of a nice little scene where Agnes has a sort of change of character, and she realizes the corruption in the Catholic Church, and she's like, this isn't the Catholic way, trying to defeat our enemies and all of that. And Biaggi's like, shut up, no, this is the Catholic way. We need to purge the heretics. And then
Get Martin Luther up in here.
so yeah, they have a big battle. Toma gets involved as well, and they're able to stop Biagio and stop the fleet. I don't know. It was kind of a bad arc. I think there was also the Amakusas getting involved and trying to help out. There's like this big pirate battle where they're fighting on the ships, and it's very strange.
Fever
Anyway,
dream.
yeah, it's kind of a fever dream. So that's that arc. And then we have the Dream Ranker arc of Railgun begins on the 26th of September. This is the second half of the third season of Railgun. It starts with a thing called Indian Poker is being circulated through the city, and this is a system which uses cards, and these cards have specific aromatic fragrances coded into them, which allow someone to put the card next to them when they sleep, and that card will give them a specific dream. And somehow this is able to be used so that people can like transfer their dreams to cards and then sell those cards to someone else or trade them to someone else, and that person can then experience the dreamer's dream. And by doing this, you can transfer all sorts of knowledge and even skills to people in dreams. It's kind of doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And so this kind of like disrupts Academy City a lot. It kind of causes a huge boom where everyone's trying to collect these dreams, like for all different purposes. Like Saturn is like collecting dreams because she wants to learn obscure skills. Like she learns to become a cup and ball expert through a dream, and she's like, this has always been my dream. She just owns obscure skills that nobody wants. Meanwhile, there's like people that are, you know, trying to learn academic knowledge through dreams. There's people who are trying to buy perverted dreams. And
As you do.
Yep. And there's also like basically what ends up being revealed is that this whole thing was released into the public because the person who did it wanted to cause I guess a quick advancement of the intellect of people in Academy City in order to be able to find someone who can solve their problem. We'll talk more about that later. One of the applications of this is there's a rumor going around that one of these cards can, by having the dream, you can increase your breast size, which is completely absurd. But
As you do.
this whole arc with Mikoto and Kinohata
yeah.
Sayai, basically they have a complex about their chests and they end up fighting over who gets to use this card. It's very funny.
As you do.
And it turns out
Oh
that
my
they couldn't
God.
find the card and never ended up doing anything, so it was a waste of time. But that's the thing that happened, so I had to include it. While this is all happening,
Right.
there's another arc that kind of happens simultaneously, and we're going to be jumping back and forth because there's a few time skips here. There's also the Astro Buddy arc, which is an arc that takes place in the Astro Buddy manga, which is another side story manga which spanned over 4 volumes, and it's really good. You should read it. But basically, the plot of that is this follows Shokuho. No, what's the name? Fucking the other one. Junko. Hokaze Junko. There she is. And her power is she was part of the Clone Dolly workshop. Ideal. Her power was she can control the bioelectricity in her body to give herself super strength, basically. So it's a similar power to Mikoto, but it's more based on her own internal electricity. And the whole story here is this is kind of like introducing the story of the Clone Dolly Lab ideal and how they were planning to use the experiments they were trying to use to get Yuri Senra to use her ghost powers to, together with Indian Poker, to give everyone the same dream, and it kind of ended up combining all of their consciousnesses into one thought being that ended up creating a monster and destroying the laboratory. Anyway, this is kind of a continuation of that story. I say continuation because I've explained it chronologically, but this is where it was all introduced. So what ends up happening in Astro Body in this arc is Hokuze Junko ends up meeting the ghost of Yuri Senra. She doesn't remember who Yuri is, and Yuri doesn't remember who she is. She's just a ghost that's wandering around Academy City with no memories at this point. And she ends up contacting Hokuze, and they end up forming a bit of a duo to try and investigate what the hell's going on. A bunch of stuff happens, but eventually they uncover a plot by Mitsuari Ayu. Where is she? There she is there. She was another member of the Clone Dolly workshop. And she feels... she's kind of been fucked up in the head from all the horrible things that have happened to her in the past. But basically, she wants to complete the research of the Clone Dolly laboratory and help the girl she was with reach level 5 and level 6. And to do this, she ends up cooperating with one of the former researchers in that laboratory. And they're basically spreading Indian poker throughout Academy City to try and give everyone the same dream, which will allow their consciousnesses to be connected with that of Yuri Senra, to create basically a divine being which will be able to grant their wishes. It's all very, very pseudoscience-y and kind of hard to follow, but the character writing in this arc is really good. You got to take my word for it. But yeah, basically it ends up happening that Sogita Gunha finds out this stuff is going on, and he suspects that Hokuze Junko is the culprit and ends up just beating her up. But like Hokuze is like, no, what the hell are you doing? I'm innocent. And they have this big dramatic fight, and it's really cool. And after exchanging blows, Gunha's like, oh, you fight like a champion. You can't be a bad person. You have guts. And they end up joining forces to take down Ayu. And they do. This is kind of the problem with Astro Body, is it was discontinued really early. So the manga was just like, it felt like it was reaching up to a big climax, and then it just ended. They got to Ayu's base and they took her down without any resistance, and it's just, the story's over now. And it's like really disappointing because that manga was so good and they had to cancel it early, so it just ended up with a really unsatisfying resolution. Astral Body, I'm always gonna be sad about you.
Why did they cancel it early again?
I think it wasn't selling well enough.
Oh,
Yeah.
so sad.
Yeah, it really sucks.
Oh.
I still recommend it, but it's a bit of a disappointing ending. So it's got a lot holding it back. And we also have the story of Style SP, which is a short story about Style being sent to Academy City to protect Patricia Birdway. Patricia is a girl here who is a sister of Lavinia Birdway, who is the leader of a prominent magic cabal, the Dawn-Colored Sunlight. And Lavinia is just an ordinary girl. No, not Lavinia. Patricia is just an ordinary girl. She doesn't know anything about magic, but I think she's being held hostage to try and get to Lavinia. And Style is sent to Academy City to deal with it. And he ends up fighting a powerful Norse magician called Richard Brave, I think his name was. And almost fails, but at the very last second, Lavinia Birdway appears on the scene and completely destroys Richard in like 2 seconds. The moral of the story is Lavinia is really strong, and that's kind of the introduction to her character. She is very powerful and also very dank. Like, she's a very interesting character. I guess I describe her as a bit of a shit poster of the magic world. Like, everyone hates her. Everyone hates her, but she be spitting straight facts. So yeah, that's the thing that happens. And wait, I'm just trying to read this all. 1 second. Right, so the the what was it? The Dream Ranker arc of Railgun, a big time skip happens, and a bunch of other things happens in this time skip. So we're going to go over all that now. On September 30th, we have the September 30th incident, or the 0930 incident, which is a really pivotal point in the story. And I wanted to talk about this last stream because we were streaming on the 30th of September, but we missed out. But this arc is really important. It's basically I didn't write any notes for it, so I gotta go off my memory. Okay. This arc starts with a little bit of a slice of life thing where Toma meets Last Order and Index meets Accelerator. Accelerator is like well out of hospital now. He's on his road. He's on his road to recovery, and he's currently living in the custody of Yomikawa Aiho and Yoshikawa Kikyo. So Yomikawa is the anti-skill lady, and Yoshikawa is the former researcher of Accelerator's project. The woman that Accelerator saved, and she saved him back in the old arc. And they're both taking care of Accelerator and Last Order, kind of like as two mums. It's a weird dysfunctional family of two mums, superpowered Esper, and then a clone. And it's really cute and wholesome. And this is all happening. Accelerator is going, like, Last Order is just going off running around. She wants to meet Toma because she's a big fan of Toma. After he saved the sisters, and that all happens, and Index ends up getting separated from Toma, and she ends up meeting Accelerator for the first time, and that it's a very fluffy sort of point of the story. But then after that happens, Last Order meets up with Accelerator again, but then I think like she grazes her knee. He needs to get a band-aid for her or something. And he goes to the shops, and then he comes out, and he finds Last Order is missing. And he goes looking for her, and he finds she has been captured by these very shady-looking dudes in, like, military gear. And this is an organization known as Hound Dog. They're a bunch of paramilitary in Academy City that do odd jobs. And they're being led by a dude called Kihara Amata, which happens to be Accelerator's former mentor / father figure, or evil father figure. And Kihara Amata's like, "Hey, Accelerator boy, long time no see." And Accelerator's like, "What's up, shithead?" And Accelerator is trying to get Last Order back, but Kihara Amata's like, "Come on, Accelerator, I'll take you on." And he basically beats Accelerator in a fist fight, which like completely perplexes Accelerator because he's meant to be able to reflect everything. He's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And it turns out Kihara Amata is just like, he has developed a technique where he's able to use his fists in a brawl, but also like pull his fist back at the exact moment where it's about to collide. So it basically reverses and punches into Accelerator. And he mixes these up with real punches just to confuse Accelerator and completely beats him up just through his fists. It's kind of crazy. And while this is happening, they are interrupted by a character called Vento of the Left. Wait, not Vento of the Left, Vento of the Front. I'm mixing them up. Vento of the Front. And who the hell is Vento of the Front? She is
Vento of the Left is a spoiler.
Pardon?
I'm guessing Vento of the Left is a spoiler.
No. I was just mixing up. Because basically there's this organization in the Roman Catholic Church called God's Right Seat. And in Index, they are the most powerful people in the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope sits at the top as a public figure, but God's Right Seat are four magicians who have basically inherited the power of God, and they basically represent the four archangels. Vento represents Uriel, if I remember correctly. Uriel, right? Uriel's the archangel of wind and air, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah. So Vento represents Uriel. And just because they're like superpowered magicians at the top of the Roman Catholic Church, even if the Pope wanted to stop them, he kind of can't because they're too powerful. So they're like the shadow cabal that runs the Roman Catholic Church from the shadows. So a bit of a controversial topic that I think CJ would be angry at me for, but he's not here anymore. But yeah, so Vento is here because she basically God's Rights are declaring war on Academy City, and their job, well, Vento's job is to incapacitate Academy City, but also to kill Kamijo Toma. And actually, was that how it worked? No, I think at this point she just wants to incapacitate Academy City. Vento has a very unique power, which is, I'm sure there's some religious mythology for this, but I can't remember for it. It's something to do with like I think it's like divine retribution for like hating God or something. But basically her power manifests in that anybody who directs malice towards her will immediately fall asleep. So she basically just busts into Academy City and like she gets caught on the news, and anybody who watches the news and feels anger towards her will immediately fall asleep. So most of the city just ends up falling asleep straight away. For some reason, Amata doesn't end up falling asleep. Vento ends up encountering Amata, and his immediate thought is just like shoot a rocket launcher at her, and it does nothing because she's very powerful. And he just like sighs and walks away. It's just like, whatever, you guys deal with this, not my problem. So anybody who doesn't feel malice towards Vento isn't affected by her spell. And Vento is here to fuck shit up. She ends up like picking up a radio that she found on the side of the road and is like, hey, Alesta, I bet you're listening in on this. And then the channel just changes and she ends up speaking with Alesta. And basically declaring war on Academy City. And Alesta's like, well, I'm not going to let you have your way. Activate the secret project that I've been building up to. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of Academy City, there's this huge tremor, and wings of light spout up into the sky. And all of a sudden, there's this huge, like, ominous presence that any magician can feel. And turns out what he's done is he's kidnapped Last Order, and by using Last Order as a sort of terminal, she's able to manipulate the AIM diffusion fields of Academy City, which he can use to control Kazakiri Hyoka, which is an amalgamation of these AIM diffusion fields. And using this, he's able to control the imaginary numbers district of Academy City, which is like his artificial heaven. It's very convoluted, but basically what this means is using this convoluted method, he's able to create an artificial heaven, a separate phase, which is able to basically put pressure on any sort of magic in the city. And so whenever anybody uses magic now, they just like start throwing up. So it causes like tremendous strain on Vento, who's like trying to find a way through the city. Celeste, I see your things lighting up. Are you trying to say something?
Oh no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, good.
Sensitive.
I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. I haven't checked chat in a while. It's because she was able to identify the magical properties in the violin, therefore being able to use magic because the magic became her Esper power. Not really how that works, I don't think. So I don't think... Maybe it's something like that, but I don't know. But anyway. So, continuing on. Accelerator is really pissed off and angry at Alesta. He believes that if he can get to the center of Academy City, he should be able to solve everything. So he uses his power to pick up a fucking building, like an apartment building. The way he does it, he basically uses his vector power to pause. How do I say? He harnesses the rotational force of the planet Earth and uses 1 second of the planet's rotation and uses that kinetic energy to launch the building towards Alesta's windowless building. And he smashes the building against it, thinking he's like destroyed Alastair, but what a surprise! The windowless building is indestructible and it didn't do anything. And just like inside, Alastair's like, oh, I heard a slight shaking just now. What was that? It's very silly. And so this is all kind of building up. Toma ends up getting involved because he wants to save Last Order, and Index becomes involved as well, and Mikoto runs into them and she becomes involved in as well. So you kind of have all the key players of Index like working together to stop the big bad right now. Well, big bads, because there's kind of two other factions here. You know, they want to stop Vento, and by stopping Vento, they should be able to stop Alastair from destroying the city. So a big battle ends up happening. Toma ends up fighting Vento, and Accelerator goes to save Last Order with Index's help. Index believes that using a magic song, she should be able to heal the virus that has been implanted in Last Order's brain, which ends up actually working. But an interesting thing is when Accelerator is fighting Kihara Amata, he ends up advancing his powers somehow, and I don't know, like, it could kind of be interpreted in a number of ways. I kind of interpret it in the corny way of like he has incorporated love for Last Order into his personal reality, and that's affecting his abilities. What ends up happening is he ends up randomly speaking the angelic language. Like, it's like really hard to understand what he's saying. It's all kind of gibberish, and the wings sprout from his back, and Kihara Amata comments that, is that the power of an angel? Which is all kind of mysterious. And then Accelerator ends up using those wings to basically blast Kihara Amata into the stratosphere and completely destroy him. And they're able to save Last Order, and Toma is able to defeat Vento, and they manage to save everyone. I didn't really mention Vento's backstory at all. Didn't really come up, but Vento's whole thing is she has a deep resentment towards science because her little brother was killed on a roller coaster. It's kind of corny.
Sounds so bad.
That sounds so. I'm sorry. That's it should be less funny than it sounds.
Yeah, out of context, it sounds a bit silly, but like, yeah, I don't know, like. The whole idea was like, you know, the people told her like it's scientifically proven that it's never gonna crash and never gonna hurt anyone, and obviously her kid brother ends up dying anyway. So she's like, wow, science is a load of bullshit, and that's kind of where resentment towards science comes from. I know Sal really likes Vento, so
I love her.
do you have anything?
She's also my fave.
Do you have anything to say about her?
No, I just love her.
Okay. And yeah, so
good.
I feel like Toma's like he has this whole thing where he's like, you know, trying to convince Vento that you know, that isn't a good reason to declare war on science, and there's they have this whole battle around that, and he eventually defeats Vento, and just says, you know, they're about to capture Vento. A big buff dude bursts through the wall and comes to rescue Vento. This guy is Aqua of the back. He's like, he's the hunk of Index.
My God.
Polo shirt daddy.
Yeah.
And he represents the power of Archangel Gabriel. So he's like, his attacks, like Vento's attacks are all like wind based, but Aqua's attacks are all like water based. And he is very strong because he's not only a member of God's Right Seed, but also a saint. So he comes and rescues Vento, and they escape Academy City. And this is kind of the point where Academy City is really thinking of fighting back against the Roman Catholic Church. Like, it's getting a bit crazy. And where are we at for time? So we're at 2 hours.
Yeah.
How are we feeling, Lizzie? Do we want to stop here, or do we want to keep going?
Oh, I have to go.
You have to go?
You have to get going? Yeah, I should probably get going myself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, this is a pretty good place to end it anyway. This is like
Right. books in, I think.
Pardon?
Are we, 13 volumes in?
Something like that. Let me check my books on my shelf.
That's so long.
I'm following along a bit with the anime titles and stuff like that, so that might be cheating.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, you're right. We are at volume 13, so that's right. And that's also like right before the end of season 2 ends. There's like one more arc. Actually, I might just talk about it really quickly if you don't mind. Actually, never mind. I won't do that. But I'll just explain. At the end of this arc, there's one more thing that happens. Where Accelerator is contacted by members of the higher ups of Academy City, and they're basically like, "So you just caused like millions of dollars of property damage. What do you have to say for yourself?" And they're basically like, "You're gonna work for us to pay off your debt to the city." And so they basically end up blackmailing Accelerator into joining an Esper mercenary group, which is, guess what it's called? It's called Group. That's the name. And so this is comprised of Accelerator, Tsuchimikado. Where is he? That's not him. Motoharu. Inabara there. He's also in it. There he is, Tsuchimikado Motoharu. And also it's Zali, who was that Aztec magician that had a crush on Mikoto. And together they form a group, and they're like the Avengers, I guess. It felt very much like the end of Iron Man, where it's just like, I'd like to introduce you to an initiative. So that's kind of where the 0930 incident ends. It's a big pivotal point for the story, and it's kind of our jumping off point for season 3 of Index. So yay, we managed to get through season 2, so congratulations.
Good headway.
There's one more side story we could cover, but we'll do that next episode, I reckon. And that's where we get introduced to a new character that becomes a third protagonist of Index. So that's exciting. Thank you everybody once again for joining. This is a lot of fun, and I do want to try and continue this for the whole series if we can. How are you feeling, Lizzie?
Oh, I'm feeling good.
I keep asking that question.
I'm sorry. I'm on push to talk, so you don't hear my slight chuckles every now and then.
Right. Yeah. I guess we'll continue this on a weekly basis again. So we'll try to get this happening Wednesday next week, and we'll work from there. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any last words, sellers?
Man, I wish I had dragons coming out of my wounds every time I got injured.
Yeah, rude.
Then my life would be different.
So yeah, I guess at this point, like, it's where the story really starts getting crazy. I feel like this is the point in the
As
books.
opposed to the completely normal and contemporary story we've had so far.
I feel like in Index, this is the point where the series gets good. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff has happened already, but I really feel like the series picks up from here. People don't like season 3 of Index because it's not a very good adaptation. I still like it, but people argue it's not a very good adaptation. But the books definitely get really good from this point on, so it's going to be exciting to talk about everything that happens. But we got through the hard part. That chronology around season 2 is fucking dense with all the stuff happening around like Daisei and all that. So I'm glad we got all that covered. All right, so how many more hours will it take for me to spell out the whole series of Toaru? You'll just have to continue watching these videos to find out. With that said, thanks for joining everybody, and we'll see you next week. I'm just going to see quickly. I've only got 2 viewers. It's not worth rating anyone. All right, we'll cut off there. Thanks for joining everybody, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lizzie. Thanks for coming.